Okay, welcome to week 2, episode 3 of Chatting Cinema. My name's Gianni,
I'm Flynn.
and today we have our good friend Sam with us.
Hi.
And today we're talking the Star Wars Episode 9 trailer, Casino Royale versus Skyfall, and our favorite horror movies. So let's get right into it. Star Wars Episode 9 final trailer came out last Monday, Monday Night Football. What did you think?
It's great.
It's great.
Yeah, it is.
It made me cry
Yeah.
every time I watch it.
How about the music? I think the music in these trailers is really what brings it all together for me. But yeah, what else?
Oh man,
I
so much.
I think that they're trying to tell me that they're gonna kill 3PO and make him say the same line as Dobby.
Right.
when he
One
dies
last look
in
at my
That
friends.
was part one.
Yep.
That was very sad. I don't know if that's like. There's so much in this trailer that I feel is like classic Star Wars misdirection.
Yeah, a lot of it is still we don't know, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's all J.J. Abrams. That's all the marketing team. They do a really good job of not letting us know, not letting us in too much, but also really getting us excited, right? Sam, any favorite moments?
Oh, a ton. Oh boy. I liked. I liked. Is it dumb to say Rey and Kylo fighting on the Star Destroyer? Because yeah, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
And I am of the firm belief that the majority of this trailer is like the first 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like Kylo and Rey fighting, whatever the hell. Sorry.
that's
So
okay.
sorry. Whatever like Poe and Finn are doing, first 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
Easy.
That's interesting to me. I tend to lean the same way. I was that way with the Endgame trailers too.
Yeah, but that's Marvel. Does
Right,
That a lot.
right.
Yeah.
Because I feel like so much of it is to keep you guessing, and if they showed second act, third act stuff, it might tip their hand a little bit. Some interesting things that were pointed out online that I didn't really catch is the shot of Kylo in his helmet, interestingly enough, with Rey destroying what looks like Vader's helmet. Behind them is Chewie's bandolier and his
saw that.
bowcaster.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I don't know what that tells you. There's also the shot somebody pointed out in that thread of Chewie running down a hallway with Poe and Finn, and he's not wearing his bandolier.
Yes.
So you see that somebody point that out, and you're like, oh great, Chewie's dead too. Because why not? Let's just kill everybody apparently.
right.
No one's gonna be left.
Yeah, it's sad.
Do we
Scary.
do we think Lando is safe?
Oh God.
He looks like he's having fun in this trailer.
Is it bad of me to say that if Lando dies, sure.
I feel like Lando's an easy like kill him and have like the gut punch with no effort at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think that people are just gonna go in and be like, "Oh, I love Lando, he's so great," and then they just kill him within 20 minutes, and it's like, I mean, you can sort of see some of the fans on Twitter their reaction to killing Admiral Akbar.
Yeah.
So true, yeah.
and not that I don't love the Mon Calamari. I don't want to put out the wrong idea, but I mean for a reaction for that for Admiral Akbar, I think that it'd be a good like easy emotional moment to like start on.
Killing
Especially
Lando?
if we're only seeing like the beginning. Yeah, not like the first scene in the movie.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah.
Like early.
Right.
Because you want the real like second, third act emotional moments to be with the new
The
characters.
new characters, yeah, for sure.
On that, then how quick do you think they're gonna kill Leia?
I have
Quick?
no idea.
Well,
I feel
because-
like it's gonna
Right.
be quick.
They originally, well, I feel like when Last Jedi came out, they were talking about how they were gonna do a time jump and have her have died off screen, but it doesn't look like that's the case because we have.
Flashback.
Oh,
Yeah,
it could be flashbacks. Yeah.
Because that stuff was filmed during 8, right? That
Yes.
hug
It-
with Rey we
Yeah.
see.
Mhm.
That was filmed during.
Yeah, I was very much convinced that 8 would be her send off.
Right.
So I was surprised when they had the big emotional shit blows up, Ben can't pull the trigger, and 2 TIE fighters just come in right behind him and shoot. Like I thought that was the punch.
Me too.
But they didn't, and it's great. And Leia's great throughout the rest of that movie, and her moments with Holdo are well worth it. I don't know what they do because I don't know what they have as far as footage, and I don't think they would do any like CG like try to
No.
create something. So it's interesting to think about what they may or may not do with Leia
Yeah.
and when it comes in the movie. So.
Yeah.
It could be a catalyst for Ben's redemption, where 5 years ahead and Leia dies
Right.
off screen, and then he finds out through the Force, and he starts being like, oh no,
Right. Right.
oh no, my
Now
mom's dead.
both my parents are gone, and not necessarily blaming himself, but through actions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Through actions that come about because of the First Order's rise.
Yeah.
Deaths that probably wouldn't happen if the First Order didn't exist. So, and I think that it's so interesting to think of Kylo as this directionless person who, you can tell all throughout the final minutes of Last Jedi, he doesn't want to be supreme leader. He's a kid that doesn't know what he's doing, and he's wearing his dad's clothes.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like something like that, like a fascist government body, to now be instead of just the enforcer, like Vader was, to really be the head of that, is like, how quickly does that crumble? And you realize, I don't want to do this. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guess we'll all find out in
Yeah.
just a few more weeks, right? December 20th.
That doesn't even sound real.
I know, it's
So- it's
crazy.
almost November. It's crazy.
I still remember when Force Awakens came out,
know.
and then we felt like this third movie was so far away, and now here we
Yeah.
are. It's just
Force Awakens.
It's crazy.
2015
yeah.
Now.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
Wow.
but so much of that misdirection, like I feel like the shot of Kylo coming out of the rain might not match up exactly with
With
the shot
Darcy
of Rey we see before. And
Yes.
is that Palpatine in the hood looking down at Rey?
I know.
I've seen as soon as we didn't see Palpatine's face in that shot, I was like, okay, that could be somebody else. I don't know who, but it could be somebody. People have theorized maybe Dark Rey, whether that's a vision, a clone,
Oh.
whatever's going on with that in the hood, in the throne, because they've also pointed out that the throne that whoever the hooded figure is sitting on, looking down at Rey, is a different throne than the Ralph McQuarrie inspired one with the spikes and whatnot, and we don't know where that throne is per se, where which throne is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen theories that it's Anakin, because on
Okay.
the side of the throne there's like the kind of mechanical
Yes.
parts
Yeah,
that
yeah.
made him into Vader. So I've heard that's a theory that's going around. It
That
might
would be interesting.
Anakin, young Anakin.
Yeah.
Are we all convinced that Hayden Christensen will be in this movie?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would not be surprised if we saw some semblance of Ewan McGregor either.
Yes.
Really?
Force Ghost, baby.
I'm even starting to think Qui-Gon Jinn too, to be honest.
Yeah. That would
yeah.
be one way to
Yeah.
really end this story.
Yeah, well,
really bring it all back.
That's what I think. I think they see the value in that,
Okay.
in attaching prequel things. And I know the shot of 3PO, there's a battle droid in the back.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
So, like, attaching those prequels and really, like, adding cohesiveness. Because there's so many people that like the prequels and grew up on it, that I don't think they want to ignore it. I think that if you're wrapping this up, if they're really wrapping it up, and, we'll see. But, right.
Yeah.
Skywalker
The end of the Skywalker story.
Just like how Infinity War was billed as an ending, when there's a whole nother movie coming to end that story alone, and then Spider-Man comes out in a couple months.
Right.
But-
Yeah. Yeah.
There was an idea.
Yeah. But to add to have like a cohesive ending and have some finality, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of the prequel Jedis and not end exactly like Return of the Jedi,
I was gonna say
but
the
yeah.
remaster with all the Hayden
Right.
Christensen's just like, hey.
and I think that there's sort of been a concerted effort by Disney and Lucasfilm to sort of bring Hayden back into the fold in recent years, having him come to Celebration and
Yep, that's true.
And I think that fans that really love what Disney has done are really embracing Hayden in a way that he wasn't before. So, yeah, I'm pretty convinced that at least he'll be in it. And I think that Ewan and Liam Neeson as Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon would make sense, if only to have that little stinger to promote Kenobi indirectly and remind people like, hey, here's Ewan as Obi-Wan. You love
fair,
him.
yeah.
You're gonna watch our show.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be surprised if
Liam Neeson
Qui-Gon
showed
is
up
in
on that show
yeah.
too, right? Yeah.
Because Revenge of the Sith ends on Yoda talking about how he's mastered the ability to become a Force ghost.
Yeah.
So wouldn't be shocked. Probably just like a quick cameo. But
Yeah. Definitely really exciting. We can't wait for
Yeah.
the Rise of Skywalker. So, moving on to Casino Royale versus Skyfall. I know that you guys are gonna come against me here.
Yeah, not super hard, but
No,
we have
Okay,
different.
speak for
Yeah.
yourself.
We should listen. We should
No.
preface this conversation. I think that we all really love these two movies, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
that Casino Royale and Skyfall are the better films of the Daniel Craig era. I don't think anyone's arguing that.
Correct.
I would go so far as to say the better films of Bond.
Of
period.
Bond. Yeah,
Yeah,
you have
absolutely.
the franchise, right? Yeah. So, how do you want to start this? Do you want to? Maybe I'll go first.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
you go
okay.
first.
So, Casino Royale, personally, I like it better because I really like that we see a younger Bond. We see him when he's not so sure of himself. He's really arrogant, and he pays for his actions. I think. M punishes him a lot. He's not really held accountable in a way that maybe he is in Skyfall. I think in Casino Royale, we get to see him, like I said, he's not that iconic character yet, right? So he's young and he's not James Bond. He's just kind of, he's an assassin, and he's, like I said, he's arrogant. He's just James right now. He's just James. He's just Jimbo. But Martin Campbell directed. I will give Skyfall some points here because I think Skyfall is the better directed
I
movie.
completely agree.
I do think for me, though, personally, I'm more invested in Casino Royale's story when I go back to revisit it. I'm a fan of the romance that's set up between Bond and Vesper. I think that's really interesting how they both challenge each other intellectually. And I don't think that's obviously present in Skyfall. But then again, you have different relationships in Skyfall that are really compelling, you know. So that's me right now on Casino Royale. One thing I'll also give to Skyfall is I think the action is done better.
I agree.
But then again, you also have that benefit that it's shot, 10 plus years later? Or 7 years later?
Skyfall was 2012.
Oh, 4.
3
Eh,
years.
give or take when they film movies, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
So anyway, they have advancements. They also have Roger Deakins at their side. So
Yes.
things like that. But personally, I do like Casino Royale better. I'm a fan of those casino scenes. Things like that really get me.
We're gonna get into those.
Are we now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't you guys take the reins?
You wanna go next?
Sure. Speaking on the casino scenes, this is something I have to point out all the time whenever I watch Casino Royale. It immediately takes me out of the movie. The big poker hand with Lashif.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, but it's fun.
sure, that's one way to put it. But the odds of that hand happening the way it does, it's hysterical to me because it's not the point. The point isn't to make an accurate poker hand. It's the drama and who knows if the hand is rigged and somebody's paid and all. But the Hanna-Barbera ridiculous throwing down of the cards and everybody just has a slightly better full house and then quads. It's so funny to me. I think it's a little silly, especially being present in a Bond movie that takes itself so seriously. And that's not a knock on Casino Royale. It's just if this happens in a Sean Connery Bond and it's sort of played for laughs, it's like, okay, that makes sense.
Pierce Brosnan,
Yes, yeah,
more
especially,
silly.
yeah. But being present in this movie, especially with all of the darker things that happen,
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing, too, that I love about Casino Royale. This is a very vulnerable Bond, too. Daniel Craig really brought a vulnerability to the role, I think, showing that he can get scarred and that he can have his heart broken and things like that all shape him into that iconic character that we know.
Right, and I think that is important in Skyfall, very important in
Yeah.
Skyfall, and that's sort of the thing that I would touch on is I prefer Skyfall to Casino Royale because Casino Royale, even though we're pointing out it's darker, it's different, it still feels so much more like a traditional Bond movie to me.
Yep.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, versus
notes.
versus Skyfall is such an interesting deconstruction of the character, and it's almost like you're watching everybody making this movie just at their peak, like going through. It's like the Bond canon, and bit by bit, sort of like exploring what makes James Bond tick, and why are people interested in this, and why is he this character that's survived for so long, not just as like an icon of pop culture, but just as a film character. So that's the big reason I prefer Skyfall to Casino Royale. Is I think it's a lot more interesting to do that than to not saying that anybody can make a straight Bond movie as effective as Casino Royale, but I think that Skyfall has a much harder task and does it better. So
I almost completely agree. I literally have my notes. It feels like it's trying to be a Bond movie, because it's interesting to me that you said that he feels very vulnerable in this movie. I feel like this is a really good representation of Bond, like the assassin, like you said. But I don't think we see James Bond as a person, even with all the Vesper stuff, until Skyfall, even Quantum of Solace. Like James Bond as a person, his like emotional attachments. Like we see the end of the movie where he finds out Vesper has betrayed him, and he's immediately just Bond again, and you're just kind of like, right, this is just like almost like a caricature.
Right.
And then oh man, the casino scenes. For Casino Royale. I just have the casino scenes, ... I feel like the structure of Casino Royale is really interesting. It's interesting that you said that Skyfall is a better directed movie. I would say it's also probably the better scripted movie, with even how slow Skyfall's third act is. It feels like it's building to something. We don't meet Vesper until halfway through Casino Royale, and the casino scenes don't start until after that. So that's either in the late second act or the third act.
Right.
And you're like... And then it's very much so slows down. And if you're not super interested in like casino scenes or poker, it's like it's a very difficult scene to watch.
Yeah.
I really wanted to actually talk about the villains in Casino Royale versus Skyfall.
Okay.
Because Le Chiffre. Like, who is he? It's so interesting. And I love Mads Mikkelsen. He's one of my
Right.
favorite actors because of Hannibal.
I think if you don't have Mads Mikkelsen in that part, Le Chiffre definitely is not as successful as he is.
Yeah.
Sure.
But for what he does in the movie, I think it's serviceable enough. But
Sure.
I think in the way that Casino Royale is really that introductory movie to Daniel Craig as Bond, Skyfall had the opportunity to really put him toe-to-toe with someone who can compete with him
Yeah.
on a physical and an intellectual level too. But Le Chiffre's just there to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
I would
He's
agree
like
with
a
that.
goon.
Yeah.
He is. He gets that torture scene though, which is
Very hard to watch.
hard to watch every
I
time.
was fine with it. It was funny.
Yeah. Silva intellectually is far more interesting to me.
Yeah.
We can see Bond go toe to toe with jump off rooftops, all this stuff. He has all
Right.
the tech in the world. Like, it's much more interesting to me for Silva to get into James Bond's skin and sort of like dissect real time for the viewer. Like,
Yeah.
this is what you are. This is who you are.
Yeah. And then I think it's interesting that you mentioned about Casino Royale, how Bond kind of goes back to being Bond after being betrayed by Vesper at the end of the movie, and how we don't really see these human elements of the character that maybe you do see in Skyfall. But I don't think that's a knock that we only see them when he's with Vesper. I think it's good. I think it works,
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
to see him be able to fall in love and walk away from that lifestyle, that life of being just the assassin, someone who doesn't have emotional attachments, and really get attached to someone. I think that flip back after he loses her, I think it works, and I think it's you can see that a guy like that would snap.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think the seeds that Casino Royale lay really show up again in Skyfall with the character.
Sure.
So.
Absolutely.
it feels like only every other Daniel Craig James Bond movie counts. Like Quantum of Solace is there, and
Yeah.
Spectre is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spectre's
Garbage.
trash.
But Casino Royale and Skyfall are the ones that do interesting things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's it for the Casino Royale Skyfall debate. Skyfall wins.
Sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But no, I think they're both good movies for different reasons.
Yeah.
And I would watch either of them way quicker than going back to Goldfinger. Or
Oh,
Agreed.
definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And hopefully Bond 25
I'm
Yeah.
hoping.
is good
Yeah.
and delivers, because it's the next, it's the every other.
Yep.
So today is October 28th, so it's almost Halloween. So we all wanted to get into one of our favorite horror movies. I think that favorite is a little definitive.
Yeah.
Because I really like horror as a genre. But the movie I picked to talk about is Scream. And interestingly enough, I think that Scream, in its own way, does something similar to Skyfall as a deconstruction. And it's a deconstruction of a genre. And it's so interesting coming from Wes Craven, who did the Nightmare on Elm Street films and is just this horror icon, for him to come to this movie in the 90s and just take the genre, and he's the perfect person to do it, because he knows horror so well, like the back of his hand. And what he did was he made a parody of a slasher movie that somehow is also the most effective slasher movie. I don't know how you do that, but Wes Craven did it. And as far as the final girl trope in horror, Sydney is so great. She's such a great character. And I think it's such an interesting look at, what a horror movie is, what it is meant to do to sort of check the boxes and then turn it on your head and surprise you. And it's fun. It's funny at times. It's effective gore if you're into that. The performances are great. Matthew Lillard is so much fun in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's really, really good, and a lot of people have seen it at this point. But if you haven't seen it, it sort of keeps you guessing until the final minutes. And I really adore it for that. So that's my pick.
Sure. Do you want to go next, Sam?
You can go next.
Okay. So I picked A Quiet Place, directed by John Krasinski. And I think this movie, when it came out, really surprised everyone. I remember that first trailer came out, and I remember people saying, like, this looks good, but it could still be bad, But the premise, I think, is what really hooked audiences. It's this world where everyone has to be quiet. Any sound could make one of these creatures come and kill you. So I think that premise was really interesting. And John Krasinski, from a directing standpoint, really brought it, I think. He only had a few other credits on a few episodes of The Office. He directed a movie called The Hollers, which I think flew under people's radar. It's a very family-oriented movie, but that was more kind of by the numbers. And then he came along with A Quiet Place, and I think he really brought it to this genre. And it's interesting, and it shows that he cared, and that a lot of people involved with the project really cared. You talked about really good performances in Scream. Same thing with this film. He has a deaf daughter in the film, played by... Let me look it up real quick.
IMDb. Come on.
Yeah, come through for me. Her name is Millicent Simmons, and she was really great. The whole cast was really good. Emily Blunt, of course,
Fantastic.
as always, amazing. Really good film, really well done.
Yeah, especially important that Millicent is played by a deaf actress.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
And
Oh, she is the actress. Sorry. Yeah.
the actress is deaf. And I think that's important. Yeah, I think that's important for especially a movie that sort of was really a smash hit like this. More big movies need to start doing that for representation's sake. And A Quiet Place is so interesting to me because it does so much with so little. It can't rely on dialogue, and that alone makes the thrills so much better and so much more effective.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the music too was
Oh,
really
yeah,
good.
it's
The score.
fantastic.
Yeah, and Scream has a great score too.
Yep.
So yeah.
Iconic score
Yeah.
for Scream, yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to change my mind. I want to talk about It.
Okay.
The new It.
Chapter 2.
Oh, man. Not the
No.
sequel.
Oh,
just the
yeah,
first.
just the newest
newest
It.
as
Not the
in-
miniseries,
yeah, right.
because we don't want to talk about the miniseries. And I know that me and you have talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
I like it as a horror movie because it's not, like, none of the jump scares in It get me.
Yes.
The big, loud, clanging noise
Yeah.
and the clown is suddenly in your face. It's the very real human fears that it delves into. I think the scariest thing that you can do is have a child hug her sexually abusive father. Like, that is horrific to me. And it's really interesting because it's kind of like a Stand By Me. I know it's also based on
Yeah.
a Stephen King book, but it's like Stand By Me, and just like you think of it as a kind of traditionally slasher-esque movie, but you know, the first scene of the movie is Georgie getting his arm bit off,
Right.
and it's horrific. You're like, oh, there's like, you know, very violent actions against children. It's terrible. But all of the kids in It are fantastic. Their friendship feels more real than any like
Yeah.
TV show friendship I've ever seen. And I don't know, I very recently got into It because of the sequel, but I think it's a more special horror movie than people give it credit for.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. The kids are so good.
Yeah.
They really knock it out of the park, and they really sell those human fear elements.
Oh yeah.
And Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise.
Oh,
yeah.
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
Instantly
Terrifying.
iconic.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal. And to follow up, someone like Tim Curry, who is Pennywise in the miniseries, he plays it more comedic, Tim Curry, but also very scary in moments. But Skarsgård really made it his own in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
And that is the interesting thing about it is Pennywise is there, and he's doing his goofy,
Yeah.
things like that. But those don't work unless the reality of Derry is so horrifying.
Awful.
And that's what allows it to sort of thrive and continue to terrorize this town, is because the town itself is awful. Everybody goes through their own pain, and that's why he's able to so effectively get under their skin, is because they're dealing with these very real horrors. And yeah, I agree. I think that it's very special. I think that people saw it in droves, and it made a bundle of money.
Yes.
And everybody was like, cool, Pennywise. But I think that there's so much more
agree.
under the surface.
Yep. The
Yeah.
villain of It isn't Pennywise, it's childhood trauma.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to end it for today. So, Sam, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. A couple things that we want to put out there. We are on Spotify. We are officially on YouTube. You can find us there. We're on Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts. We'll be on Apple Podcasts very soon. Everyone have a safe Halloween. Once again, I'm Gianni,
I'm Flynn.
and thanks for listening.
Yeah, and thank you to SSTV for allowing us to utilize the studio again. It's so great. See you guys later.